Before castles fell and empires faded, there were men living behind stone walls who rarely spoke, but watched everything closely. And while the world outside chased conquest, speed, and spectacle, these monks devoted themselves to quiet work, repeated daily without applause. And among their most overlooked practices was something that looked insignificant: a pot of linseed oil gently heated over a low, steady fire. Yet from this simple act emerged materials that protected buildings, preserved art, resisted weather, and carried meaning far beyond their physical form, because the monks understood something modern life has forgotten: that time is not wasted when it is used to refine, and that ordinary things become extraordinary when treated with patience, attention, and respect. And as you listen to this story, you will realize that boiled linseed oil was never just about oil or fire, but about a philosophy of life that turned slowness into strength, discipline into beauty, and simplicity into endurance. And by the end of this journey, you may begin to see your own daily routines differently, recognizing that what you repeat quietly may be shaping your future more powerfully than anything you rush to achieve. They knew raw potential is not enough. Linseed oil taken straight from the seed looked promising at first. It was natural. It was pure. It came directly from the earth. But in practice, it failed. It was thin and unstable. It dried too slowly to protect anything. It spoiled easily when exposed to air and time. On its own, it could not be trusted. The monks noticed this quickly. They did not deny its limitations. They did not pretend that because something was natural, it was automatically useful. They observed reality carefully, without ego, without romance. So they changed it. They placed the oil over fire, not violently, not recklessly, but with intention. They watched it. They stirred it. They allowed time to do its work. The oil thickened. It became stronger. It became predictable. It became reliable. Only then did it become valuable. This reveals a truth the monks understood deeply. Potential is not power. Potential is only the beginning. What matters is what something becomes after it is tested. Raw talent fades if it is never trained. Raw belief collapses when it is never challenged. Raw strength breaks when it is never disciplined. The monks knew that leaving things untouched does not preserve them, it weakens them. They understood that refinement is not corruption. It is completion. They did not glorify things for being pure or original. They glorified what endured. Transformation was not seen as loss. It was seen as responsibility. And this is where modern thinking often fails. We celebrate beginnings but fear the process. We admire potential but avoid pressure. We want results without refinement. The monks thought differently. They believed that anything meant to last must pass through heat, must accept time, must be shaped intentionally. Linseed oil taught them this lesson every time they worked with it. What is untouched may be beautiful, but what is transformed becomes useful. And usefulness, to them, was a form of truth. They mastered controlled fire. Fire was always present in a medieval monastery. It warmed stone halls in winter. It lit corridors before dawn. It cooked meals and melted wax. But fire was also the greatest threat. One mistake could turn a monastery into ash. One careless flame could erase years of work, books, and lives. When monks boiled linseed oil, they worked with one of the most dangerous combinations possible: oil and fire. They understood this risk completely. If the fire was too strong, the oil could ignite. If the heat rose too fast, the batch was ruined. If the flame was ignored, disaster followed. So they learned restraint. They kept the fire low. They adjusted it patiently. They watched the surface of the oil, not the flame itself. This was not guesswork. It was observation, repetition, and humility. The monks did not try to dominate fire. They did not rush it. They treated it like a force that demanded respect, and in doing so, they discovered something powerful. Fire does not destroy by nature. Fire destroys when it is uncontrolled. Under discipline, fire transform. It thickens oil. It strengthens material. It turns weakness into durability. The monks learned that power must be guided, not suppressed. They did not extinguish fire out of fear. They trained it. They reduced it to a steady, obedient tool. This way of thinking shaped more than their materials. It shaped their lives. They approached emotions the same way. Passion was not denied, but regulated. Anger was not fed, but cooled. Desire was not indulged, but directed. They understood that intensity without control leads to ruin, while discipline without force leads to stagnation. Balance was everything. In the quiet glow of controlled flames, monks practiced a philosophy without writing it down. The strongest force is the one you can hold steady. Fire taught them that mastery is not loud. It is calm. It does not rush. It does not flare. It remains consistent. And this is why their work endured. Because what is controlled lasts longer than what burns brightly and fades. They turned humble plants into lasting strength. The monks began with something almost invisible in its importance. A simple flax seed grown quietly in fields that most people walked past without noticing. And from this small, ordinary plant, they pressed oil that looked unimpressive at first, thin, pale, and fragile, offering little reason to believe it would become anything meaningful. Yet, the monks understood that strength does not announce itself at the beginning. It reveals itself through process and intention. They did not dismiss linseed oil because it lacked power at first touch. Instead, they studied it patiently, observing how it behaved, how it reacted to air, how it responded to time and heat. And through this careful attention, they unlocked its hidden capacity. When boiled, the oil thickened, hardened, and changed into a protective force, capable of sealing wood, strengthening tools, and defending structures against moisture decay and slow destruction. This was not accidental. It was the result of understanding nature deeply, rather than exploiting it, the pudbul. Monks did not fight the material, they cooperated with it, allowing the plant to become something greater than its original form. And in doing so, they demonstrated a truth that defined their way of life. That lasting strength is rarely born from rare materials or grand resources, but from humble things used with wisdom, discipline, and patience. They believed that what mattered was not how impressive something looked at the start, but how well it endured when exposed to time, weather, and used. This mindset shaped everything they built, because when you learn to draw power from simple materials, you are never dependent on excess. And when you respect small beginnings, you gain control over longevity. The flax plant became proof that the ordinary contains extraordinary resilience if guided correctly. That real strength is quiet, functional, and designed to last, rather than to impress. They protected instead of replacing. In a world where every tool took time and every structure demanded labor, the monks learned early that survival depended not on endless creation, but on careful preservation. And when they discovered what boiled linseed oil could do, they did not treat it as a convenience, but as a responsibility, because this oil allowed wood to resist moisture stone, to endure weather, and tools to survive years of daily use. Rather than discarding what showed signs of wear, they sealed it, strengthened it, and gave it more life understanding. That decay was often not a failure of material, but a failure of care. This way of thinking shaped the rhythm of monastery life, where maintenance was not a chore, but a discipline. Doors were not replaced at the first, crack beams were not abandoned at the first sign of age. Instead, each surface was cleaned, treated, and protected, extending its usefulness far beyond what neglect would allow. And in this practice, the monks expressed a belief that value increases with stewardship, rather than novelty. They did not chase constant renewal because they understood that replacement is expensive, but preservation is wise. And this mindset stood in contrast to impulsive consumption, because to protect something requires attention, patience, and respect, while replacing something only requires resources and urgency. The monks knew that what is preserved carries history, effort, and memory, and that strengthening what already exists builds continuity rather than waste. And through boiled linseed oil, they practiced a philosophy that treated materials as companions rather than disposable objects, believing that longevity is not achieved by constant change, but by commitment to care. And in doing so, they created structures and tools that endured generations, proving that wisdom is not found in how often you start over, but in how well you sustain what you already have. They created beauty that outlived them. When the monks began using boiled linseed oil in pigments, they were not thinking about fame recognition or artistic legacy, because their lives were built around humility and service. Yet through patience and understanding, they laid the foundation for beauty that would survive centuries. This oil allowed color to bind deeply to surface, to dry slowly and evenly, and to resist fading long after the hand that applied it was gone. And this slow drying nature was not a flaw, but a gift, because it allowed correction, layering, and depth, giving artists time to work thoughtfully rather than impulsively, and through this process, beauty became deliberate rather than accidental. The monks understood that anything meant to endure must be given time to settle and mature, and this belief shaped the art created with linseed oil paintings. Were not rushed expressions of emotion, but carefully built compositions, designed to withstand light, air, and age. And while the monks themselves rarely signed their work, the results of their discipline remained visible long after their names were forgotten, revealing a truth that guided their lives. That legacy is not built through recognition, but through durability, and that beauty which lasts is always the result of restraint, patience, and respect for process, rather than speed or ego. And in choosing materials that aged well, they ensured that their efforts would speak quietly across generations, proving that the highest form of beauty is not what draws immediate attention, but what continues to exist long after its creator has disappeared. They made safety invisible. In the stone corridors of a monastery, danger rarely announced itself loudly, because it often arrived quietly through a neglected flame, a splintered handle, or a weakened surface. And the monks understood that survival depended not on reacting to disasters, but on preventing them long before they appeared, which is why boiled linseed oil became an essential part of their daily maintenance, rather than an emergency solution. They used it to strengthen lamp holders, seal wooden fittings, and stabilize tools, so that fire behaved predictably rather than violently. And this careful preparation reduced risk without drawing attention to itself, because the goal was never to create visible defenses, but to eliminate the conditions that allowed failure to begin. And through this approach, safety became embedded in the structure of everyday life, rather than added as an afterthought. The monks believed that wisdom worked best when it remained unnoticed, because when something functions perfectly, it rarely calls attention to itself. And this philosophy extended beyond materials into conduct and routine, where discipline prevented chaos long before it could arise. And by treating safety as something woven quietly into design, rather than imposed through fear, they created environments that endured peacefully, allowing focus to remain on prayer work and contemplation rather than constant vigilance. And in doing so, they demonstrated that the most effective protection is not dramatic or visible, but steady, silent, and reliable, ensuring that danger has no opportunity to take a root. They created weather-resistant life. Life in medieval monasteries unfolded in direct contact with the elements, where rain, wind, cold, and damp stone were not inconveniences, but constant realities, and the monks understood that endurance required cooperation with the environment rather than resistance to it, which is why boiled linseed oil became a quiet ally in daily survival. When cloth was treated with this oil, it transformed from a fragile material into a shield, capable of resisting moisture, blocking wind, and enduring repeated use without tearing. And this was not done for comfort alone, but for continuity of work, because soaked garments slowed movement, weakened the body, and distracted the mind. And the monks believed that clarity of thought depended on physical stability. So they engineered clothing and coverings that allowed them to move through fields, workshops, and travel routes without being defeated by weather. And this preparation reflected a deeper philosophy that hardship is best addressed before it arrives rather than endured unnecessarily. And by strengthening simple materials, they reduced suffering without increasing luxury, proving that resilience is not excess, but foresight, and that true simplicity does not mean exposure to harm, but intelligent readiness. And through oil-treated cloth, the monks created a life that could function steadily, regardless of rain or wind, showing that those who respect their environment and prepare for it quietly gain freedom within it, rather than constantly struggling against it. They chose slow methods over fast results. Boiling linseed oil was never a quick task, and the monks knew this from the beginning, because rushing the process destroyed everything the oil could become, as too much heat caused it to burn, while impatience ruined its structure and made it useless. And for this reason, the work demanded hours of steady attention. Where the fire remained low, the vessel stayed, watched, and the hands stayed disciplined. And this slow method was not seen as inefficiency, but as respect for the process, because the monks understood that speed produces outcomes, while patience produces reliability. And through repetition, they learned that what is hurried may function briefly, but what is developed slowly behaves predictably over time. And this principle shaped more than their materials. It shaped their thinking, because they lived in a rhythm where daily effort mattered more than immediate reward, and progress was measured by consistency rather than urgency. And in choosing slowness, they protected themselves from mistakes, waste, and unpredictability, allowing mastery to grow quietly through familiarity and observation. And this approach stood in contrast to impulsive methods that promised quick results but failed under pressure, showing that durability cannot be rushed and that systems built slowly absorb stress better than those assembled quickly. And by accepting time as a necessary partner rather than an obstacle, the monks created outcomes that endured, proving that slowness is not the enemy of progress, but the foundation of lasting success. They trusted small daily practices. The monks never believed that greatness arrived suddenly, because their entire way of life was built around the idea that meaning is shaped through repetition rather than moments. And when they worked with linseed oil, they treated it not as a special event, but as a routine responsibility that returned again and again across days, seasons, and years. The oil was boiled the same way. Each time the fire was adjusted with the same care. The vessel was watched with the same patience. And this repetition was not boring to them, because they understood that stability is created when small actions are performed correctly without variation or neglect. And through this consistency, the monks removed chance from the outcome, allowing reliability to replace uncertainty. And over time, this quiet discipline compounded into mastery, not because they chased improvement aggressively, but because improvement naturally emerged from familiarity and attentiveness. The monks believed that wisdom grows when attention is given daily rather than occasionally, and this belief shaped how they approached everything from prayer to craftsmanship, because they knew that habits form character, and character forms results. And when linseed oil was prepared regularly, it revealed patterns that would never be seen in hurried experimentation, such as subtle changes in texture, timing, and response to heat. And through these observations, knowledge accumulated slowly but permanently, becoming embodied understanding rather than written instruction. And this approach freed them from dependence on inspiration, because their systems functioned regardless of mood, energy, or motivation. And this is what allowed their work to endure across generations, because it was not built on enthusiasm but on structure and repetition. The monks trusted that small practices performed faithfully would eventually outperform dramatic efforts performed inconsistently. And this trust shaped their daily rhythm, where each task carried meaning precisely because it was repeated rather than exceptional. And they believed that neglecting small tasks weakened the whole, while honoring them strengthened everything. And this mindset protected them from frustration because progress was not measured by sudden visible change, but by steady alignment with process. And when mistakes occurred, they were corrected quietly without abandoning the routine, because the monks understood that discipline does not eliminate error, but absorbs it and continues forward. And over time, these small corrections refined their methods into something nearly flawless, not because they pursued perfection, but because they respected continuity. And this, in philosophy, extended beyond material work into spiritual life, where daily prayer, daily silence, and daily service shaped inner strength more reliably than rare emotional intensity. And the monks recognized that transformation does not arrive through dramatic breakthroughs, but through accumulation, where each small action leaves a trace, and when enough traces align, they create lasting form. And this is why linseed oil prepared by monks behaved predictably, because it was born from predictable behavior. And the predictability became a source of peace because it removed anxiety from outcomes and replaced it with trust in process. And by surrendering themselves to daily discipline, they freed their minds from constant decision-making, allowing energy to be focused on presence rather than control. And in this way, small practices became anchors that stabilized life against uncertainty and change. And through decades of repetition, the monks proved that what is done daily becomes invisible but powerful, shaping environments, tools, and people without demanding recognition. And this belief remains one of their greatest lessons, that small, faithful actions performed consistently will always outlast grand efforts performed sporadically, and that true mastery is not built by intensity, but by devotion to routine. They believed the ordinary hides the sacred. The monks did not believe that meaning only appeared in grand moments or rare materials, because their entire way of life was built around the understanding that significance is revealed through attention rather than scale. And when they worked with linseed oil, they did not treat it as a trivial task or a purely functional process, but as an act that deserved care, intention, and respect, because they believed that creation itself carried wisdom when approached correctly. And this belief shaped how they interacted with ordinary things such as fire, water, wood, and oil, seeing them not as resources to exploit, but as partners in a process that demanded humility and patience. And through this lens, even the most repetitive labor became meaningful because it was performed with awareness rather than haste. And the monks understood that the sacred does not always announce itself through spectacle, but often reveals itself through quiet order, balance, and reliability. And by honoring simple materials, they honored the intelligence embedded in nature itself. And this perspective allowed them to live without constant dissatisfaction, because they were not searching for meaning elsewhere. They were uncovering it where they already stood. And through daily acts performed with intention, they transformed routine into devotion and work, into prayer, without separating the physical from the spiritual. And this integration gave depth to their lives, because nothing was wasted, not time, not effort, not attention. And by treating ordinary tasks as worthy of respect, they developed an inner stillness that modern life often lacks, because when meaning is found in the simple, there is no need to escape into excess or novelty. And this belief also protected them from arrogance, because they did not elevate themselves above the materials they worked with, but placed themselves within the process, accepting their role as caretakers rather than masters. And through this humility, they discovered that the sacred is not hidden because it is rare, but because it requires presence to be seen. And this presence transformed how they experienced time, slowing it enough for awareness to emerge. And in recognizing the sacred within ordinary labor, they built lives of quiet depth, where purpose did not depend on recognition, but on alignment with reality. And through this final lesson, the monks left behind a message that remains relevant, that meaning is not found by searching further outward, but by seeing more clearly where you already are, and that when attention becomes reverent, even the simplest act can carry profound significance. The monks never boiled linseed oil because it was mysterious or impressive, but because they understood something deeper than technique, which is that lasting power is born from patience, attention, and respect for process, and through simple, repeated acts they transformed ordinary materials into protection, beauty, resilience, and continuity, without seeking recognition or speed. And in doing so, they revealed a truth that still applies today, that what endures is not what is rushed, but what is refined, that strength is not loud, but reliable, and that meaning is not found by chasing complexity, but by committing fully to simple things done well. And when you learn to work slowly, carefully, and consistently, even the most ordinary elements of life begin to carry weight, purpose, and quiet. Sacredness, because mastery is not about doing more. It is about seeing deeper, caring longer, and allowing time to complete what intention begins. Boiled linseed oil was never just a material inside medieval monasteries. It was a teacher working quietly beside the monks, reminding them every day that nothing meaningful is formed instantly, and that time is not an enemy to be defeated, but a partner to be respected. And through slow fire, careful watching, and repeated practice, they learned that patience shapes strength more reliably than force, and that what is rushed may shine briefly, but what is given time becomes dependable and enduring. And in the stillness of courtyards and workshops, this oil carried a lesson that extended far beyond woodcloth or paint teaching. That mastery unfolds gradually, that care compounds silently, and that the most powerful transformations often happen so slowly they are almost invisible. And yet, when you look back across years or centuries, their results remain unmistakable, because what time is allowed to shape with intention will always outlast what speed tries to create in a moment.